The warm glow of the setting sun paints the sky in hues of orange and purple, much like the sunsets over the ancient Mediterranean. Close your eyes and imagine yourself there, drifting back in time to a world of sailing ships and clashing empires. We begin our journey into the past, to a time of mighty fleets and legendary generals. We're going to explore the Punic Wars, a long and bitter struggle between two powerful civilizations, Rome and Carthage. Picture Rome, a city built on 7 hills, its people growing in strength and ambition. They were farmers, soldiers, and builders, slowly expanding their influence across the Italian peninsula. Then there was Carthage, a wealthy and sophisticated city in modern-day Tunisia. Its people, the Carthaginians, were skilled traders and sailors, their vast network of ships connecting them to far-off lands. They controlled a lucrative empire stretching across North Africa and beyond. For a time, these two powerful forces existed side by side, their interests occasionally overlapping, sometimes cooperating, but ultimately destined for conflict. The First Punic War began around 264 BC, sparked by disputes over Sicily, a strategically important island in the Mediterranean. The Romans, determined to extend their power, and the Carthaginians, eager to protect their holdings, found themselves locked in a naval struggle unlike any seen before. Imagine the colossal wooden warships, crewed by thousands of men, clashing in titanic battles. The sounds of crashing timbers, the screams of the wounded, the rhythmic beat of oars, a cacophony of war echoing across the waves. Years of fighting stretched on. The Romans, initially outmatched at sea, learned quickly and developed their own powerful navy. They fought with tenacity and skill, and slowly but surely began to gain the upper hand. Think of the courage of the Roman legions, their disciplined ranks, their unwavering resolve. And consider the Carthaginian ingenuity and naval expertise, their ships and tactics a constant challenge to the Roman war machine. It was a protracted conflict, a war of attrition that saw sieges, naval battles, and desperate land engagements. The ebb and flow of the war shaped the destinies of both empires, forever altering the course of history. Let the sounds of the waves lull you to sleep as we continue this journey through history. Picture the sun-drenched shores of the Mediterranean centuries ago. Imagine small villages nestled amongst olive groves and vineyards, slowly growing, slowly gaining strength. This is where our story begins, a tale of two cities destined for greatness, and a conflict as old as ambition itself. Rome, a city built on 7 hills, started as a small settlement, a collection of simple houses and rough-hewn streets. But within its people burned a quiet fire, a determination, a slow and steady expansion. They built roads, stretching like the arms of a giant across the Italian peninsula, connecting distant villages and forging a sense of unity. Slowly, surely, Rome began to exert its influence, absorbing neighboring communities, establishing its authority, always pushing further, always growing stronger. Across the sea, on the coast of North Africa, another power was rising. Carthage, a city founded by Phoenician traders, was a jewel of the Mediterranean. Its bustling port teemed with activity, ships laden with purple dye, Fine silks and exotic spices arrived from far-flung corners of the known world. Carthage's wealth and power grew from its extensive trade network, stretching across the sea, reaching into Spain, and influencing the fate of countless communities. Its shrewd merchants and skilled sailors built a vast empire, a network of trading posts and colonies that rivaled and sometimes surpassed even the early might of Rome. Both Rome and Carthage shared the same magnificent sea, the same bounty of trade routes, the same alluring lands ripe for conquest. The Mediterranean, once a peaceful expanse of water, became a stage for a growing rivalry, a subtle tension between two emerging powers. Each victory, each new territory controlled, each successful trading venture brought them closer to a collision, an unavoidable confrontation for control of the sea and the rich resources it offered. The initial skirmishes were small, almost unnoticed at first, mere disagreements over trade routes or minor territorial disputes. But the seeds of conflict were sown, and as Rome's ambition and Carthage's influence grew, so too did the certainty of their eventual clash. The warm Mediterranean sun witnessed this quiet simmering, this slow build towards an inevitable storm, a conflict that would shape the very course of history. And as the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the ancient lands, we'll gently drift towards sleep, carrying the weight of this ancient rivalry with us into our dreams. The year is 264 BC. Imagine the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean. This is the beginning of a long, slow conflict, the First Punic War. Rome, a burgeoning power in Italy, found itself facing Carthage, a wealthy and powerful empire across the sea in North Africa. For a time, their interests had peacefully overlapped, but now the clash of ambitions was unavoidable. The initial skirmishes were mostly land-based, a series of back-and-forth struggles on the islands of Sicily and Corsica. But the true turning point, the real test of strength, lay on the water. Neither the Romans nor the Carthaginians were initially a major naval power. The Romans, masters of land warfare, found themselves at a disadvantage against the experienced Carthaginian sailors. Their legions were mighty on land, but the vast expanse of the sea presented a new challenge. They needed ships, and quickly. So they began to study the Carthaginian vessels, captured or observed in battle, carefully analyzing their designs. The Romans, ever practical and resourceful, weren't about to reinvent the wheel. They improved upon what already existed. They built their own quinquiremes, large warships, powerful but not as sleek or fast as the Carthaginian models. They learned to build quickly and efficiently, drawing upon the immense manpower of their legions. The initial Roman naval battles were less than successful. They suffered losses, their land-based tactics proving largely ineffective against experienced naval opponents. But the Romans were persistent. They didn't give up easily. They observed, they learned, they adapted. They developed a new weapon, the corvus. Imagine a large, heavy gangplank tipped with a spike at one end. It was a boarding bridge, essentially. This ingenious device, swung from the mast of the Roman ships, would bridge the gap between vessels during battle. Suddenly, a Roman naval battle became less a matter of sophisticated seamanship and more of a land battle at sea. The Roman legions, famed for their disciplined fighting, could now board enemy ships, fight in close quarters, and overwhelm their opponents with superior strength and numbers. The Corvus revolutionized Roman naval warfare. Battle after battle, the Romans used this clever invention, turning their considerable land-based strength into an advantage at sea. It wasn't just about brute force, though. It was about adaptability, resourcefulness, and a willingness to learn from their mistakes. The tide slowly turned. Carthage, initially dominant on the water, found themselves increasingly outmatched. Slowly, painstakingly, the Romans gained mastery of the seas. The long struggle continued, but the Roman naval victories shifted the balance of power decisively. And as the waves gently lap against the shore, you can almost hear the echoes of those ancient battles, a testament to Roman ingenuity and determination. Let the sound of the waves lull you into a peaceful sleep. The dust settled after the First Punic War, a long and arduous conflict that had reshaped the Mediterranean. Rome, victorious, stood at a crossroads, its power and influence stretching further than ever before. Imagine the bustling Roman Senate, the senators weary but triumphant, debating the future. They had proven their mettle against Carthage, a formidable naval power, and now controlled Sicily, a prize of immense strategic and economic value. The island's fertile lands and strategic position provided Rome with a foothold in the Western Mediterranean, a gateway to further expansion. But the victory was not without its cost. Years of warfare had strained the Roman treasury and the manpower of the legions. The senators knew they needed time to consolidate their gains, to rebuild and reorganize. Meanwhile, across the sea, Carthage was reeling. The loss of Sicily, its granary, and a key source of wealth was a devastating blow. Picture the Carthaginian citizens, their spirits dampened, facing a difficult period of rebuilding. Yet they were not broken. Carthage, despite its defeat, remained a powerful city-state, its wealth and influence still substantial. They began the long, slow process of recovery, focusing on repairing their shattered economy and rebuilding their navy. Hannibal Barca, a skilled general, emerged as a prominent figure, advocating for a renewed focus on Spain, a land rich in resources and a potential springboard for future ambitions. He understood that a direct confrontation with Rome was unwise for now. Instead, he would patiently build up Carthage's strength, preparing for a possible future reckoning. The peace that followed the First Punic War was a fragile one. Rome's growing might cast a long shadow over its neighbors, and Carthage, despite its losses, was far from vanquished. The balance of power in the Western Mediterranean had shifted undeniably toward Rome, but the embers of conflict still glowed beneath the surface. The years that followed were a time of uneasy calm, a period of rebuilding and consolidation for both empires, a period that, in retrospect, we now see as the quiet before the next storm. Each breath of the warm Mediterranean breeze whispered of the simmering tensions, reminding everyone that the rivalry between Rome and Carthage was far from over. The seeds of the next great conflict had already been sown, silently growing in the fertile soil of ambition and resentment. The year is 2018 BC. Imagine, if you will, a vast army, elephants lumbering amongst the ranks of men, slowly making its way across a harsh and unforgiving landscape. This is Hannibal's army, a Carthaginian force unlike any the Roman world had ever seen. Hannibal, a name whispered with awe and fear, was a brilliant military strategist, a master of tactics, and his ambition burned bright, to strike at the heart of Rome itself. His plan was audacious, almost unbelievable. To reach Italy, he would traverse the formidable Alps, a mountain range considered impassable by most. Picture the scene, a winding path carved into the rock face, the chilling mountain air biting at exposed skin. The sheer scale of the undertaking is staggering. Thousands of men, thousands of animals, all struggling against the elements, the treacherous terrain, and the ever-present threat of ambush. Snow, ice, and unpredictable weather tested their strength and resolve. Yet they persevered, driven by the unwavering determination of their leader. The journey itself was a testament to human endurance. The passage likely took weeks, perhaps months. Think of the slow, laborious ascent, the icy winds, and the constant worry of falling rocks. Many men and beasts perished on the journey, victims of the unforgiving mountains. Yet Hannibal, with his remarkable resilience, led his forces forward. Finally, they emerged on the Italian side of the Alps, the site of the fertile plains below, a reward for their arduous journey. News of Hannibal's arrival sent shivers down Roman spines. His army, though depleted, remained formidable. Victories at Trebium and Lake Trasimene followed. These battles showcased Hannibal's tactical genius, his ability to outmaneuver and outwit his opponents. The Roman legions, accustomed to victories, found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. A sense of unease settled over Rome. Hannibal's campaign in Italy lasted for years, a prolonged struggle marked by brilliant triumphs and agonizing setbacks. He won stunning victories, pushing the Romans to the brink. Yet, despite his mastery on the battlefield, he couldn't secure a decisive blow that would bring Rome to its knees. The city, with its resilience and the vastness of its resources, proved far harder to conquer than he had perhaps anticipated. His daring strategy, though brilliant, ultimately fell short of its grand objective. His tale, though, remains one of history's most remarkable stories of ambition and daring. The echoes of his elephant's footfalls and the ghosts of his soldiers still seem to whisper on the mountain passes. Sleep now, and let these whispers fade into your dreams. The year is 2016 BC. Imagine the sun beating down on the dusty plains of Apulia in southern Italy. A vast Roman army, brimming with confidence, stands arrayed against a smaller force under the command of Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general. Rome, the rising power of the Mediterranean, felt invincible. They underestimated Hannibal. He was, after all, a master of strategy, a quiet genius who planned his moves with the precision of a sculptor chiseling marble. The Romans, under the consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, outnumbered Hannibal's forces significantly. They believed in the strength of their legions, their disciplined formations, and the sheer weight of their numbers. They saw a simple victory ahead, a swift end to the war. But Hannibal saw something different. He saw opportunity. He knew the Roman army's strengths, their unwavering discipline, their reliance on the predictable. He understood, too, their weaknesses, their rigidity, their tendency to overestimate their own power, their lack of adaptability. He'd spent years observing them, learning their ways, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And that moment was now. Cannae was not a battle of brute strength, it was a battle of cunning. Hannibal, with remarkable foresight, chose the battlefield. He positioned his army in a crescent shape, a concave line facing the advancing Romans. The flanks of his army were formed with lighter troops, Numidians and Gauls, designed to hold the Romans in place and prevent a breakthrough. His center, though, was deceptively weak, a lure to entice the Romans into a fatal trap. As the Roman legions charged forward, confident in their superior numbers, they found themselves drawn into the Carthaginian crescent. They pushed forward, deeper and deeper into the curve, their ranks tightening, their ability to maneuver diminishing. They were surrounded. Hannibal's lighter troops on the flanks now sealed the trap. The Romans, once proud and confident, were locked in a deadly embrace. The vast Roman army was now hemmed in, a sea of men, unable to escape the killing ground. The Numidian cavalry, swift and relentless, cut off any hopes of escape. The Gauls and Iberians pressed in, their swords flashing in the brutal sunlight. The battle, initially hopeful for the Romans, turned into a massacre. The Roman army, once so proud, was systematically destroyed. The story of Cannae is a chilling reminder that even overwhelming numbers can be overcome by strategic brilliance and a deep understanding of your enemy. It was a masterclass in deception and military prowess, a lesson whispered on the wind, a testament to Hannibal's genius, carried across the centuries. As you drift off to sleep, let the quiet whispers of history lull you into a peaceful slumber. The early years of the Second Punic War were unsettling, to say the least, for the Romans. Hannibal's stunning victories at Trebia and Lake Trasimene left them reeling. The powerful Carthaginian army, a force unlike anything they'd faced before, seemed unstoppable. Panic rippled through the Republic. Many called for immediate, decisive action, a great battle to crush Hannibal once and for all. But a quieter voice, a more patient strategy, began to gain ground. This was the Fabian strategy, named for Quintus Fabius Maximus Verrucosus, a Roman senator. Fabius understood that Hannibal's army, though brilliant, was far from home. His supplies were tenuous, dependent on long and vulnerable supply lines stretching across hostile Italian territory. Direct confrontation, Fabius reasoned, played directly into Hannibal's strengths. Instead, he proposed a war of attrition. Imagine it. The Roman legions, instead of meeting Hannibal head-on, would shadow him. They'd harass his foraging parties, cut off stragglers, and generally make life incredibly difficult. They wouldn't offer a pitched battle, but rather a constant, gnawing pressure. They'd avoid large-scale confrontations, choosing instead to pick off Hannibal's forces piece by piece, wearing them down slowly but surely. Think of it as a slow, persistent drip wearing away at a stone. This approach was frustrating. Many Romans found it infuriating. They yearned for a glorious victory, a chance to reclaim their pride. The Fabian strategy, with its emphasis on patience and avoidance, seemed almost cowardly. Yet it was effective. Hannibal's army, despite its victories, was steadily bleeding men and supplies. The constant harassment, the endless shadowing, chipped away at its strength. It was a war of nerves, a test of endurance. But the Fabian strategy wasn't a complete solution. It couldn't win the war, only buy the Romans time. And time, in this case, allowed for the emergence of a new hero, Scipio Africanus. He was a young, ambitious general who rose through the ranks with skill and determination. Unlike Fabius, Scipio believed in decisive action, in taking the fight to the enemy, and this meant taking the fight to Carthage itself. Scipio understood that the war wasn't just about defeating Hannibal in Italy. It was about striking at the heart of Carthage, about disrupting their own supply lines and eroding their confidence at home. His vision, his daring strategy, would ultimately lead to the end of Hannibal's campaign and the decisive clash at Zama, a story for another night, perhaps. For now, let the quiet rhythm of these words lull you into a peaceful sleep. Let the echoes of Roman history fade gently into your dreams. The sun beat down on the plains of Zama, a harsh, unforgiving light reflecting off the polished bronze of Roman shields. Dust swirled, a hazy curtain obscuring the vast armies arrayed against each other. On one side, Hannibal's Carthaginian forces, weary but resolute after years of relentless war. They had crossed the Alps, they had won at Cannae, they had defied Rome for over a decade. But now the end was near. Facing them, Scipio Africanus and the legions of Rome, fresh and confident, eager to finish the long struggle. You can almost feel the tension in the air, a quiet hum building before the storm. Imagine the nervous anticipation of the soldiers, the clash of steel on steel, the thunder of hooves as the elephants charged forward, their immense bulk momentarily breaking the stalemate. The Carthaginian war elephants, once a symbol of fearsome power, were met with the disciplined ranks of Roman infantry, their spears a bristling forest of steel. Many of Hannibal's veterans, scarred and battle-worn, remembered the victories of the past. They'd tasted triumph, felt the exhilaration of overwhelming odds overcome. But this was different. The familiar confidence faltered under the weight of Scipio's superior strategy. The battle raged, a chaotic dance of swords and shields, a desperate struggle for survival. The Roman legions, expertly maneuvered by Scipio, relentlessly pressed their advantage, their discipline a stark contrast to the increasingly disorganized Carthaginian lines. Hannibal, his legendary skill unmatched, fought with the courage of a lion cornered. But even his genius couldn't overcome the sheer weight of numbers and the superior Roman tactics. The elephants, once a potent weapon, were now scattered, their fury spent, their charging momentum broken. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the battlefield, a landscape of blood and broken dreams. The Carthaginians fought bravely, but their strength was waning. One by one their ranks thinned, their resistance finally broken under the relentless Roman assault. Hannibal, his legendary skill unmatched, fought with the courage of a lion cornered. But even his genius couldn't overcome the sheer weight of numbers and the superior Roman tactics. The elephants, once a potent weapon, were now scattered, their fury spent, their charging momentum broken. The afternoon sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the battlefield, a landscape of blood and broken dreams. The Carthaginians fought bravely, but their strength was waning. One by one their ranks thinned, their resistance finally broken under the relentless Roman assault. The air grew heavy with the scent of sweat, blood, and the dying embers of hope. As dusk settled, bringing a quiet blanket of darkness over the scene, the battle was decided. Rome had won. The long shadow of the Punic Wars was finally drawing to a close, its final scene played out in the dusty plains of Zama. And in that quiet stillness, you could almost hear the sigh of a weary world finally beginning to rest. The dust settled over the battlefield, the clash of swords and the cries of men fading into the quiet hum of the Mediterranean breeze. Carthage, once a proud and powerful city, lay humbled, its dreams of empire shattered on the rocks of Roman might. The Second Punic War, a conflict that had spanned years and tested the limits of both nations, had finally come to an end. Hannibal, the legendary Carthaginian general, was gone, his brilliant strategies ultimately outmatched by the stubborn resilience of Rome. The peace, however, was far from tranquil. Rome, victorious, now held sway over much of the Mediterranean world. Carthage, stripped of its territories and its navy, was reduced to a shadow of its former self. Heavy tributes were demanded, crippling the once mighty city's economy. The very existence of Carthage became a constant worry for Rome, a reminder of a potential resurgence that kept the Senate awake at night. Imagine the slow, deliberate pace of life in the Roman Senate. The senators, grave and thoughtful, debated the future, the long-term implications of their triumph. They had won the war, but the victory had come at a great cost: bloodshed, resources, and a lingering uncertainty. Across the sea, in the remaining fragments of the Carthaginian Empire, people whispered in hushed tones, their hearts heavy with loss, yet clinging to the faint hope of a future rebirth. Rome's dominance, though undeniable, was not without its challenges. Governing such a vast empire, encompassing diverse cultures and languages, proved a complex undertaking. The Roman legions, accustomed to conquest, now had to learn the art of administration, of diplomacy, and of maintaining peace in the lands they had conquered. New roads had to be built, laws established, and trade routes secured, an immense task that stretched the Roman system to its limits. The Mediterranean, once a stage for fierce competition, gradually transformed under Roman rule. Trade flourished, albeit under Roman oversight. The flow of goods and ideas, once disrupted by war, resumed, albeit on terms dictated by Rome. The Pax Romana, the Roman peace, slowly began to take hold, promising an era of stability that would, in time, shape the very character of the Mediterranean world for centuries to come. But the ghosts of Hannibal and the battles fought under the scorching sun and the crashing waves remained, a silent testament to the price of empire and the enduring legacy of the Second Punic War. And as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, let that image of the changing Mediterranean world lull you into a restful sleep. The air hung heavy with the scent of salt and fear. The year was 1460 BC. Across the shimmering expanse of the Mediterranean, the Roman legions were massing. Their target, Carthage, once the jewel of the ancient world, now a shadow of its former glory. The Third Punic War had begun, a final, brutal chapter in the long, simmering conflict between these two titans. You might picture massive battles, sweeping charges across sun-drenched plains. And there were battles, of course, but the war's story is woven with a different thread, one of slow, deliberate destruction. Think of the relentless creep of a tide, eroding the shore inch by inch. That's how Rome approached Carthage. The Carthaginians, their spirit unbroken despite years of simmering resentment and Roman pressure, fought fiercely. Their city, a labyrinth of narrow streets and towering buildings, became a fortress. But the Romans, with their superior military organization and relentless drive, slowly tightened their grip. Imagine the sounds of siege engines groaning, the rhythmic crash of battering rams against ancient walls, a steady, unsettling percussion against the backdrop of the sea. The struggle lasted 3 years, a protracted siege that slowly choked the life from Carthage. Each day brought more hardship, more loss. The once vibrant marketplaces fell silent, their bustling energy replaced by the hushed desperation of a city under siege. The laughter of children faded, replaced by the cries of the hungry. Picture the faces of the people, etched with worry and exhaustion, their hope slowly dwindling with each passing dawn. Finally, after years of resistance, the Roman legions breached the city walls. The ensuing destruction was swift and complete. Not just a battle, but a systematic dismantling. Houses were burned, temples toppled, monuments shattered. Everything that represented Carthage's proud history reduced to ashes and rubble. It was a terrible, heartbreaking sight, a city's essence erased. The Roman soldiers moved through the streets, their swords dripping with the blood of those who dared resist. Others surrendered, their fate uncertain. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and death, a grim testament to the finality of Rome's victory. The once great city, a symbol of power and wealth, became a silent graveyard, a testament to the brutal realities of war. And so, the mighty Carthage was no more, its legacy reduced to dust and a whisper on the wind. Let these images fade gently as you drift off to sleep. The dust settled on the plains of Zama. The clash of steel, the roar of the battle, faded into a distant memory. Hannibal, the great Carthaginian general, tasted defeat. His brilliant campaigns, his daring maneuvers, his unwavering courage, all seemed to crumble under the weight of Roman might. Yet, even in defeat, his spirit remained unbroken. He fled, a shadow of his former self, escaping to the court of King Antiochus III of Syria. He found no rest there, though. The scent of battle still clung to him, and the Romans, ever watchful, ever persistent, cast their long shadows across his new refuge. He offered his considerable military expertise to Antiochus, guiding the king's armies in a bid to challenge Roman dominance. But the tide of history had turned. The Battle of Magnesia proved a turning point, another defeat for Hannibal, a further dimming of his once bright star. Rome's reach was vast, its influence undeniable. Exile, a bitter pill, became his constant companion. He found himself adrift, a wanderer on the shores of history, a master strategist without an army to command. The familiar clang of swords, the thunder of charging elephants, became only echoes in his mind. Yet, even in the quiet solitude of his exile, his mind remained sharp, his strategic vision undimmed. He may have lost battles, but he would not lose his dignity. He sought refuge in the courts of various kings, finding a brief respite, a flicker of warmth in the cold winds of adversity. But the specter of Rome never truly left him, a silent, ever-present threat, a reminder of his ultimate defeat. The once mighty Carthaginian general, the man who had brought the fear of Rome to its very doorstep, was reduced to a shadow, a fugitive, his once vaunted power diminished. Yet, even in exile, Hannibal's legacy grew. His military strategies, his innovative tactics, lived on in the annals of history, inspiring generations of commanders and shaping the course of warfare for centuries to come. His daring exploits, his remarkable courage, served as a testament to his indomitable spirit. The tales of Hannibal's life, of his unwavering determination and extraordinary accomplishments, echoed through time, a constant reminder of a man who defied the odds, who fought with unmatched skill and cunning, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. His story, a whisper on the wind, a legend etched in the stones of memory, ultimately transcended even his bitter defeat. He may have been exiled, but his ideas and his influence continued to reverberate through the ages. His name, whispered on the breath of the wind, became a legend, a symbol of enduring courage and brilliance, even in the face of inevitable defeat. The dust settled after the final clash, the echoes of battle fading like the last embers of a dying fire. Rome, victorious, stood as the undisputed master of the Western Mediterranean. But the Punic Wars, though concluded, had irrevocably reshaped the world. The once mighty Carthaginian Empire, a powerful rival, was reduced to ashes, its influence a faint whisper on the wind. This victory, however, came at a cost, a price etched onto the very fabric of Roman society. The extended conflicts had drained Rome's resources, leaving its treasury depleted. The constant mobilization of armies had disrupted agriculture and trade, leading to periods of hardship and unrest among the populace. The prolonged wars also fostered a growing military presence within the Republic itself, a change that would eventually sow the seeds of future instability. Generals returning from distant lands, their legions loyal to them rather than the Senate, began to exert undue influence on Roman politics, a shift in power that would prove crucial in the years to come. Across the Mediterranean, the landscape had been irrevocably altered. The once vibrant Carthaginian colonies, centers of commerce and culture, lay in ruins. Their decline left a power vacuum, a void that Rome quickly filled. The vast territories controlled by Carthage, encompassing significant portions of North Africa, Spain, and Sicily, now fell under Roman dominion, expanding the Republic's sphere of influence exponentially. This sudden expansion, however, brought with it new challenges. Governing such a vast empire required a robust administrative system and a formidable military presence, demands that stretched Roman resources and capabilities to their limits. The political landscape was equally transformed. The Senate, once the supreme governing body, now faced increased pressure from ambitious generals and a growing class of wealthy landowners. The Republic's traditional values and structures began to crumble under the weight of its newfound power and the societal stresses caused by the war. The seeds of empire were sown, but with them came the complexities, contradictions, and ultimately the vulnerabilities inherent in such sweeping changes. The quiet hum of daily life slowly resumed across the shores of the Mediterranean, but beneath the surface, the currents of change ran deep, silently reshaping civilizations for centuries to come. The ripple effects of those long-fought battles continued to spread, subtly altering the course of history. And so, the Mediterranean world, forever changed, drifted towards a new dawn, a future both promising and uncertain. The air hung heavy with the scent of olive trees and the distant murmur of the Tiber River. After centuries of struggle, a new era dawned in Rome. The monarchy, with its unpredictable rulers and occasional cruelties, had faded into the past. In its place rose the Roman Republic, a system built on the principles of citizen participation and elected officials. Imagine the bustling forum, the heart of this new Rome, filled with the sounds of debate and the weight of momentous decisions. It was a time of great change, a time of careful construction following years of brutal conflict. The Punic Wars, those long and exhausting struggles against Carthage, had reshaped the world. Rome, initially a regional power, now dominated the Mediterranean. The echoes of those battles, the clash of swords, the cries of men, the thud of battering rams against city walls, still lingered in the memories of the older generation. But now, a different kind of energy filled the city. The energy of expansion, of consolidation, of building something lasting. The senators, those powerful men who guided the Republic, faced a monumental task: to govern a vast and diverse empire. They established a complex system of laws and governance, a framework that would, in time, shape the legal systems of countless civilizations. It wasn't always peaceful. Internal conflicts and power struggles were common. Ambitious generals and powerful families vied for influence, their ambitions sometimes leading to civil unrest. But through it all, the Republic endured. Think of the legions, those disciplined armies that had conquered so much. Now, they were tasked with maintaining order and protecting the far-flung territories of the Roman Republic. Their steady march, the rhythmic thud of their boots on the cobblestone streets, became a symbol of stability. The vast network of roads they built, stretching across mountains and valleys, connected the empire, facilitating trade and communication. The Republic wasn't perfect. It had its flaws, but it offered a sense of stability and order that the earlier monarchy had failed to provide. Slowly, steadily, Rome consolidated its power. The Republic was a work in progress, a testament to the resilience and adaptability of the Roman people. As the sun sets on this chapter, we can almost feel the quiet confidence that settled over Rome, a quiet confidence built on the foundation of hard-won victories and a belief in the strength of the Republic. The dream of empire, once a distant glimmer, now shone brightly, a beacon promising wealth, influence, and a long, if not always peaceful, future. Let that feeling of quiet strength settle over you as you drift off to sleep. Now, as the embers of the day fade, let's drift into a gentle exploration of history, separating the whispers of legend from the solid ground of fact. We'll look at how stories change over time, how different people saw the same events, and how our understanding of the past is always evolving. Imagine, if you will, the tale of a great king. Perhaps you've heard stories of his incredible battles, his unmatched wisdom, his legendary generosity. The songs and poems celebrate his victories, making him seem almost godlike. But if we dig a little deeper, into dusty old records and crumbling stone tablets, a different picture might emerge. We might find mentions of difficult decisions, of compromises made, of moments of doubt. The king, once a larger-than-life hero, becomes a more human figure, flawed yet striving. This is the nature of history. It's not a single perfectly preserved painting, but a tapestry woven from countless threads, some bright and bold, others faint and faded. Each thread represents a different perspective, a different account, a different interpretation. The farmer who lost his land during the king's campaign might have a very different story to tell than the nobleman who profited from it. And their descendants, generations later, might remember things slightly differently again, adding their own embellishments and interpretations. Think of the stories passed down through generations, like ancient rivers carving their path through time. Each retelling subtly alters the course, adding a bend here, smoothing a rough edge there. A detail might be omitted, another exaggerated, a character's motive misinterpreted. And yet, these changes aren't necessarily malicious. They're simply the natural flow of memory and storytelling. So, how do we navigate this complex landscape? How do we separate the wheat from the chaff, the verifiable truth from the colorful embellishments? It's a challenge, a delicate dance between critical thinking and imaginative empathy. We must examine multiple sources, consider the biases of the storyteller, and always remain open to the possibility of multiple truths. The past isn't always neat and tidy. It's messy, nuanced, and full of unanswered questions. And that's okay. The beauty of history lies not just in the established facts, but also in the mysteries it leaves us to ponder, in the gaps it invites us to fill with our own informed imagination. So breathe deeply, let your worries drift away, and allow yourself to be gently lulled by the quiet hum of history's unfolding narrative. Sleep soundly now, knowing that the past in all its complexity continues to whisper its secrets into the night. Now, as the embers of the day fade, let's drift back in time, to the shores of the Mediterranean, to a conflict that shaped the ancient world, the Punic Wars. Imagine the clash of civilizations, the Romans and the Carthaginians, locked in a struggle for dominance. These weren't just battles, they were lessons in strategy and leadership, etched in history's sands, lessons we can still ponder today as we gently unwind. Picture Hannibal, the Carthaginian general, a master strategist. He wasn't merely a battlefield commander, he was a visionary, a planner who foresaw the challenges and adapted. His daring march across the Alps with elephants, a feat of logistical brilliance, showcased his understanding of supply lines and the importance of surprise. He knew that a well-placed strike, a clever maneuver, could offset a larger, less adaptable force. He understood the power of mobility, of exploiting weaknesses in his enemy's position. Think of his innovative use of terrain, choosing battlegrounds that suited his strengths and exploited Roman weaknesses. He wasn't afraid to take risks, to think outside the traditional box of warfare. But even Hannibal, with all his genius, had limitations. The Punic Wars highlight the crucial role of sustained supply lines. Hannibal's army, brilliant as it was, ultimately suffered from the difficulty of maintaining supplies far from home. This reminds us that even the most daring plans need a solid logistical base to succeed. The wars also showed the importance of political maneuvering, of securing alliances and support, something Hannibal eventually struggled with. He may have won battles, but the war was not just fought on the battlefield, it was also fought in the political arena. On the Roman side, we see the slow but steady rise of a power that valued discipline and adaptation. While initial Roman strategies often proved insufficient against Hannibal's brilliance, Rome ultimately prevailed due to its resilience, its ability to learn from its mistakes, and its capacity to replenish its armies. They showcased the importance of strategic patience, the understanding that victory isn't always about quick wins, but about consistent pressure and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances. Rome demonstrated the significance of a strong, centralized government, able to mobilize resources and sustain a long-term conflict. The Punic Wars, then, weren't just about battles and victories. They were a masterclass in leadership, strategy, and the importance of long-term planning. They remind us that even the most brilliant tactical maneuvers can falter without a solid foundation of logistics, political support, and the adaptability to learn and evolve. And so, as the quiet of the night settles around you, let these ancient lessons sink in. guiding you towards your own strategic victories in life, gently lulling you into a peaceful slumber. The echoes of clashing swords and the roar of Roman legions have long faded, yet the reverberations of the Punic Wars continue to resonate through the corridors of time. Imagine, if you will, the sun-drenched fields of Sicily, the salty spray of the Mediterranean, the weight of Roman ambition pressing down on Carthage's proud spirit. 3 great wars, a century of conflict, etched into the very fabric of the ancient world. Rome, a rising power, clashed with Carthage, a maritime empire boasting wealth and a sophisticated military. These were not mere skirmishes, they were titanic struggles for dominance, shaping the future of the Mediterranean and, by extension, much of the world that would follow. Think of Hannibal, a name whispered with awe and respect even now, crossing the Alps with his elephants, a breathtaking feat of military strategy and audacious ambition. His victory at Cannae remains a textbook study in tactical brilliance, a testament to Carthaginian ingenuity. But Rome, though bloodied and bruised, proved resilient. Its adaptable military machine, its capacity to learn from its mistakes, and its sheer determination ultimately prevailed. The destruction of Carthage, a city once a symbol of power and sophistication, serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of protracted conflict. The very salt of the earth was scraped from its existence, its people scattered, its legacy largely erased. Yet, from the ashes of Carthage, a new order emerged. Rome's victory reshaped the geopolitical landscape, establishing its dominance and leaving an indelible mark on the cultures and civilizations that surrounded it. The Roman Republic, strengthened by its triumphs and hardened by its struggles, would go on to conquer vast swaths of land, creating an empire that would endure for centuries. But the Punic War's legacy extends beyond the purely political. They offer enduring lessons on the human cost of conflict, the perils of unchecked ambition, and the enduring power of resilience. The echoes of those battles remind us that even the most decisive victories often come at a steep price. The strategic calculations, the tactical maneuvers, the unwavering resolve of both sides, these continue to be studied and analyzed, informing military strategies even in our modern world. As you drift off to sleep, let the gentle rhythm of the waves, a metaphorical echo of the Mediterranean, lull you into peaceful slumber. Let the whispers of history, the lessons of the Punic Wars, be a quiet companion as you journey into the land of dreams. The story of Rome and Carthage is one of conflict, yes, but also of resilience, strategy, and the enduring power of human ambition. A tale that continues to shape our world in ways both visible and unseen. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the Mediterranean in hues of orange and purple, so too does our story of the Punic Wars reach its gentle close. Imagine the waves lapping against the shores of Carthage, a soft rhythm that echoes the rise and fall of empires. The scent of salt and sea air mingles with the faintest whisper of pine from the forests of North Africa. Picture Hannibal, his grand strategy unraveling, the weight of years and battles etched upon his weathered face. He's far from home, the echoes of Zama's defeat a somber lullaby in his weary ears. The vastness of the Roman Republic, once a formidable adversary, now stretches out before him, a silent testament to its power. But even in defeat, there's a certain quiet dignity. The clash of swords fades into a distant murmur. The roar of the legions softens to a gentle hum. Think of the Carthaginian people, their city scarred but not broken, their spirit flickering yet stubbornly persistent. They rebuild, brick by brick, slowly, painstakingly, just as the setting sun rebuilds itself each morning. Their lives, their losses, their resilience, all woven into the very fabric of the land. The rhythmic pulse of their lives continues, a slow, steady heartbeat against the backdrop of history's grand narrative. The Roman legions, victorious but weary, return to their homes. The cheers of celebration gradually subside, replaced by the quiet contentment of a hard-won peace. They carry with them tales of valor and hardship, memories etched as deeply as the scars on their bodies. The sounds of their marches fade, replaced by the murmur of everyday life, the creak of wooden doors, the hushed voices of families. The wind whispers secrets through the olive groves, carrying the scent of history, of triumph and tragedy, of resilience and defeat. Let these sounds, these images wash over you as you drift towards the gentle embrace of sleep. Feel the weight of the centuries settle upon you, a calming blanket against the anxieties of the day. The Punic Wars have ended, but their echoes linger, a soft lullaby to lull you into a peaceful slumber. Let the quiet strength of the past carry you on the gentle current of dreams. Good night.